Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode. Today we tackle a game that was part of my very early childhood, Super Punch-Out! It was one of the half-dozen games we had while growing up, and when looking around my room to decide on which game would come next, my eyes just kept bouncing back to this title. I have a lot of fond memories of this, watching my older siblings play and not being able to get very far myself. I used to get fired up just as a viewer all the time though. I mean, look at these iconic faces. Listen to those epic themes, look at the size of these guys, and all of the absolute insane stuff that can happen to you when you step into this ring. I've been playing this since I was on my knees 2 feet from the screen. It was a great game to play at that age with its large, colorful, fluid sprites, its boisterous crowd complete with camera flashes, memorable sounds, and juicy punching sound effects. Plus, it taught me early how to approach a game defensively and with legitimate strategy. It's a phenomenal SNES classic.
Pizza cake.
As you've been seeing, it's not your typical boxing game, and is of course the sequel to the excellent Punch-Out title on NES, and for anybody that didn't know, the series originated in the arcade. Coming back to this game after it's just been so long was excellent. It still looks good, feels, and sounds great. It's been a long time, yet I'm still recognizing faces like it was just the other day. They're a rowdy crew for sure, and definitely get you pumped. Let's talk about the fighting. So it's simple and really effective. You basically have a quadrant you could punch in with a high left and high right and a low left and low right. Holding up keeps your punches and your guard high, while neutral resting position keeps the punches and the gloves low. The opponents are the same way, with either high or low gloves for you to keep your eye on. Some opponents are totally worth countering when you anticipate what's coming and beat them to the punch, dazing them for a delayed opening and also adding to an internal daziness meter. What you'll mostly be doing though, if you play it the safest, is waiting for a punch to come and simply slipping past it or ducking underneath one, then stringing together some jabs. If you do this a few times, your power meter becomes full and... Using these things together with a simple dodge, jab, and power punch to get through these fights is the easiest way. Some enemies are as simple as just pressing them over and over with jabs because they aren't very dangerous and are slow to punish any mistakes. Like take Gabby J for example, with his classic 1 in 99 record. He says he just needs another chance. He's not finished yet. At 110 pounds, my goodness. I remember thinking that was big when I was little, before realizing around 4th grade that we would have been the same size. The way this climb to greatness is laid out is by circuits, and each circuit has 4 fighters in it. As you would expect, the further you go, the more difficult the fighters and overall circuits are. The special circuit is only unlocked with a perfect 12-0 record. To some, that may sound ridiculous, but with some practice and using the dodge, jab, super punch method, it's not really that big of a deal, and even after all those years, it wasn't really a problem to do it again. I definitely took longer on some fights than I ever used to, but there were only a couple of moments where I got caught for a knockdown. Fights can definitely catch newcomers off guard. I specifically remember some middle-aged carpenters or techs of some kind in our basement a long time ago when I was super young, laughing their asses off at each other as they kept getting worked over by the second fighter in the game, Bear Hugger. A complete noob trap. If you punch his stomach, he mocks you. If you punch high, he blocks and smashes down in your face. This is where you need to duck, which isn't that crazy, but this is reaction testing and pattern recognition 101 here, and the point is, you don't get far in this game without it. Let's talk about what these fights are like. Gabby J, you can punch him until he falls, and only horrendous hesitation and failure to do much of anything would result in you losing to this guy. Bear Hugger, you punch high, duck, jab, super punch over and over until he goes down. Piston Hurricane. Despite looking like a stud and having a moderate jab flurry come your way if you don't put him down quickly, you can just keep jabbing around his hands to get him down quickly, and then when he gets up to have another word, sit him back down. Bald Bull is when the game starts to get real and send some legitimately devastating attacks your way. In general, for these fights, I tried to hang in there with a lot of these to land counters on the fly and took punishment, while I just tried to learn them, which you'll see, and the game has an interesting health regeneration aspect to it, where you mash all of the buttons as quickly as you can. Your opponents can also recoup health by landing shots in on you. Mashing rapidly is also very important for getting up from knockdowns quickly. It gives a unique flow to playing the game, another layer, and not many other games have that type of aggressive controller activity. After putting those 4 guys down, we're on to our next circuit. We reach a pretty hilarious parody, Bob Charlie, from Jamaica, asking if you have the rhythm. He bumps and grooves with little fake-outs, and some interesting moves come your way. He even has a coach that tells him to jive, where he gets all funky and fakes on your punches. Dragon Chan is yet another interesting character, and it's at this point right here when many of your opponents do not care about playing fair anymore. There are no rules from this point. This guy can kick at your sides or fly across the ring for a knockout boot. The dude even can heal himself, which doesn't happen all the time, and is pretty crazy. Definitely the first fight that I can vividly remember my older brother and his friend struggling to beat. Masked Muscle didn't do you any favors either, as he continues to break the rules with his big-ass headbutts or even spits in your eyes, which is just freaking crazy, man. How creative. I mean, you know at this point, all bets are off in this league. There are a fair amount with the big, strong guy build in this game, and they continue to become faster and stronger as you go. Right in line with that would be Mr. Sandman. Talk about a badass name. And look at this guy. Jeez, if you think that's scary, check out the face he makes as he pauses before he uppercuts, hoping to catch players that move too quickly. He definitely has some series where you have to move a few times in a row before you get a chance for your shots, but in general, you'll get used to those and just landing a jab, then power punching him to the canvas. We're already halfway through, but now things get a bit more serious. Aaron Ryan is a psycho. I'll tell you right now that he kinda scared the crap out of me growing up, since this guy seems to be pretty casual until you land a power punch. Then he comes back to latch onto you and absorbs your health. You panic mash your buttons to get him off. We always said it's maybe because he's sucking your blood like a vampire, draining your health, but who knows what's happening here. You can sometimes anticipate when he's going to come back in and sack him multiple times in a row, just in time, which feels great. Kagero is a character that I to this day just don't know how to pronounce, obviously, and we always just refer to this thing as a woman, but obviously that can't be true. But how would we know better with this lavishly long hair, the pink gloves and boots, the makeup, and did I mention the lavish hair? It's an interesting fight with cycles of moving at Super Saiyan speed and then appearing for a quick series to block or avoid some jabs, a power punch, and repeat. Mad Clown is a pretty dang terrifying and yet another one that served as a roadblock a little bit as we were kids, and it was definitely a lot to take in as a spectator for so much of it. Your opponents start to bob and weave a bit more at this point in the game, where they may punch back or in a pattern quicker than you're used to, plus of course how damaging and brutal some of these attacks are. This guy can even crush your skull with his hands if he grabs it. Brutal. Super Macho Man has intimidated his opponents since the NES days, and when you see his series of combos with huge life-demolishing winding haymakers with his unique mojo as he dances around the ring, it's not that hard to understand why. They even call his combos exercise sets, and that's what you've got to be prepared for those onslaughts, and make the most of each opening that you can get against this guy. Narcissus Prince is just an interesting character, with play on narcissism translating directly into his fighting style, where he's pompous and difficult until you manage to hit him in the gut first and then hit him in his pretty face, and that's where he loses his temper and starts swinging for the fences. This is when he's much easier to simply slide and return fire with real combos. He snaps out of it between knockdowns, and you have to make sure to repeat the sequence in order to keep the beatdown going. This crazy old guy, who I always associate with the grandpa from Three Ninjas, is the biggest rule breaker we've seen yet, and he's another name that I have no idea how to pronounce.
Hi, Carlo! Fight!
He's got a big staff that he uses throughout the fight in multiple ways. Plus, one important aspect of what makes him trickier is the fact that his body shifts left and right when you're punching him, so you have to pay more attention to what buttons you're hitting to not drop a combo. Always interesting to see how different characters go down, and a low-power jab to the gut has always been a favorite of this guy. He might ask you to take it easy on him in the beginning, but if you were suspicious about that comment, you were right to be so. Rick Bruiser is quite the badass with his huge stature and his punk earring. Definitely somebody I would want in my corner. He's definitely an interesting fight that would catch you by surprise in a lot of ways, like how quickly he comes right back after a punch, or can actually block and crush your hand, temporarily disabling it. There have been plenty of fighters with some high damage or instant kill attacks, or instant knockdowns I should say, and as fighters start to move around with more complexity, it's easy to accidentally get lulled into the wrong position just to get smacked down. Now it's time to take on the champion, Nick Bruiser, a man of very few words and the crimson jaw of a god, and his no-nonsense way of unloading huge punches that you could only dream of blocking. Not only is this guy super hard-hitting, he has a couple of tricks from last fight, with some similar gigantic moves and a ridiculously powerful onslaught of attacks that even the tightest of rhythms can get caught with his punishing blows. Always thought it was so cool though, the way your mouthpiece flies out. Even getting knocked out is epic in this game. One thing that definitely makes him even more tough is the fact that he also shifts left and right, like the old man did, which means he's not just the hardest hitting, but also a tricky thing to keep combos going on, since he tends to wake quickly from dazes too. After all this time, I wasn't proud of how long the fight took, but at least I was able to come back into the ring for the first time in a long time and reclaim the title. Champion of the world.
Knockout. Got it. Right on.
But something didn't feel right. See, this isn't the same cartridge we grew up with, unfortunately, and this one has clearly already been heavily played with its 8 save files, and with all of the competition, that had me checking the Time Trials mode that you can unlock, where you play any of your favorite unlocked matches as much as you want with the goal of a KO, where they don't get up in 10 seconds, or a TKO after your third knockdown. It just wouldn't be right to put this game back in the shelf without earning all of the #1 ranks myself. I'll be damned if I don't at least try to own all of the records on my own copy. Gotta protect the home turf, that's for pride's sake. Some of the times were pretty solid though, and I knew it wouldn't come easily, but it was time to start digging, practicing, paying attention, because Mac and I, we weren't going to stand for it any longer.